into the post-secondary CTE learning community. After that, we'll spend some time discussing different aspects of programs of study. Then we'll start to wind down the meeting with grant administration, like monitoring, reporting, all that good stuff. We'll then finish off with Whitney Thompson discussing our Perkins State Plan performance metrics, as well as a quick share out of current and future state projects. Please note, immediately following the meeting, like Amy just said, we will be having your ICCB CT liaisons will be hosting short breakout sessions to give you all a place to connect, ask questions, etc. This is optional, but it's also highly encouraged. So, all right, so let's start off the meeting with some quick introductions from the ICCB CTE team. We finally have an almost fully staffed team with a couple of new team members, so I'm going to let everyone quickly introduce themselves. While we would love to hear all of your lovely voices, for the sake of time, I'm going to ask you all to introduce yourself in the chat pane. Just a quick hi, you know, where you're from. So as I've already introduced myself, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Whitney to introduce herself.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Whitney Thompson, Senior Director for Career and Technical Education here at the board. It's very good to see all of your faces and names as I scroll across the participant list. So I'm very excited for the Forum for Excellence, even though we can't really see you. We have over 800 people registered, and so obviously this has given us unprecedented access. So very excited to hear from all the presenters and keynotes this year.
All right, Nicole, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Nicole Jerger with the Illinois Community College Board, CTE. It's nice to see everybody here today and be together with you all, and I look forward to a great conference.
Hi, everyone. My name is Janelle Jones, and I'm an Associate Director for CTE at the Illinois Community College Board, and it's nice to see everyone. This is my first conference, so I'm excited.
Good afternoon. I'm Ann Story, Associate Director for CTE, and like Janelle, it's my first conference, so I am looking forward to meeting everyone.
Hi, I'm Angela Gerberding. I'm also with CTE, but if you're wondering what that ICP stands for, it's Integrated Career Programs. So I am the one over top of the ICAPS IET programs. And this is my first forum in probably 5 or 6 years. So I'm happy to put faces with names.
Hi, you guys. My name is Deja Luckett. I am the CTE Research Analyst, and I'm happy to be here. And this is my second conference, and yeah.
All right. Uh-oh. Okay, it's not letting me click. Okay, there we go. All right, thanks everyone for the great introductions. As I said before, we pulled together a list of some of the on-demand sessions that you can access through the Whova app. We have a number of these. They're short and sweet, so we encourage you to listen in. We have one on the 2020 MOA State Plan, Grant Writing 101 for competitive Perkins grant opportunities, student and faculty engagement, the Illinois Post-Secondary Profile, and the CTE Networking Directory. We have also updated the Perkins expenditure resource to reflect Perkins 5. This is that the allowable, unallowable sheet that we created several years back. Additionally, we wanted to include information about the programs of study models as well. Whitney will be discussing this at greater length later on in the meeting. None of these resources are linked in this presentation. However, they will be available on the ICCB CTE website following the end of the conference. So as always, there are a ton of excellent sessions ready for you. So we thought we would pull together a list of these that may really pique your interest. So tomorrow we have one about the Perkins CLNA, putting the band back together after COVID. discussing racial equity in spaces of resistance, ICAP's growing pains, training on instructional practices for post-secondary success, or TIPS, bringing work home, a framework for virtual work-based learning, and then rethinking the purpose of gen ed courses and CTE programs. And then on Friday, we have collaboration for equitable faculty development in extreme times, utilizing data to advance equitable outcomes and small CTE programs of study, increasing the use of ability to benefit, creating a state-defined process, introduction to universal design for learning, navigating the nuances, programs of study and career pathways, and then also addressing the trauma of COVID. Okay, so before we begin the next portion of our meeting, I want to quickly say that as time permits, at the conclusion of each section, we'll open it up to the floor for questions. We do have to really stay on task and firmly stick to meeting timelines. So if we don't get to your question, we'll try to answer it at the end or put together an FAQ after the meeting if necessary. So with that, I would like to introduce Nancy Bittner, Amy Ramito, and Laura Sullivan, all EFE directors who have so graciously agreed to join us for our Connecting with Secondary Partners panel discussion today. Ladies, I will open the floor to you at this time. If you would like to start off by briefly introducing yourselves and what you think are the main roles of being an EFE.
Hi.
I'll go first. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura Sullivan, and I'm the EFE director in Coles, Clark, Cumberland, Douglas, Edgar, Effingham, and Moultrie, Shelby counties. Our community college is Lakeland College. They are our partners in education. I've been with the EFE office. This is my 16th school year, so I've been around a little while. But I would say some of the main roles of our EFE is to connect education with business and industry while creating opportunities for students to explore a variety of careers and showing them a path to obtain the career they choose, as well as providing opportunities to strengthen ties between education and the world of work through skill development, dual credit, and work-based learning opportunities, just to name a few. So go ahead, Nancy.
All right, I'm Nancy Bittner. I'm with EFE 280 in West Central Illinois, Henderson, Knox, Warren, and Mercer counties. And I think our job is really to be a liaison for small districts that can't afford a CTE director, but still need those services. And so that's how I kind of view my position.
Awesome. So I'm Amy Ramito. I am EFE 020. That's dealing with NSERV, and within that area, the districts are Evanston, Glenbrook, Maine, New Trier, and Niles. So our community college partner is Oakton. So I want to give a shout out to Mark, Alexandra, and then Anne. Thank you guys so much for your work. And I've also just been in this position since July 1st. Prior to that, I was the EFE for Chicago for the past 3 years. And then about the main roles of the EFE, I think my two colleagues have really covered it, but I want to say this lovely word that I feel that we're throwing around all the time now, especially with Perkins 5, is innovation. So I feel that that's another huge component of this role, is bringing innovation to our districts, and also getting innovation passed with our grant too.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with that more, Amy. All right, so in a pre-COVID world, if we can all remember back to that time, I think we can all agree that typically face-to-face meetings were the most effective in terms of input and output and meeting productivity. As we navigate these virtual times and tend to have full and conflicting schedules, what advice can you give for ensuring the continuity and integrity of these meetings? Laura, if you want to go ahead and go first, and we can just go down the line.
Sure. I would say continuing to meet in person in large spaces or picnic areas are still a doable option. I know I've had an advisory meeting in a picnic table, and that was okay. Everybody was just glad to see other people, like-minded people in the same space. We do continue to meet online with some of our advisory groups. We're all professionals, and that tends to work well in this environment. I know I'm personally able to attend more meetings just because I don't have to drive there. I do cover 8 counties, and doing this from home or at the office has definitely been a huge time saver for me. I think it's also important to keep in mind that this is a difficult situation for everybody that we work with, whether it's our community college or our business partners. We're all in the same boat. We all have the same emotions that hit us every now and then. So I would say as you work on doing any kind of meeting, whether it's face-to-face or not, be sure to stay brief and stay to the point and keep productive.
I want to give a shout out to my community college. I kind of forgot that the first time around, which is Carl Sandburg College. Ellen and Missy and the whole team there do a wonderful job of collaborating with our secondary partners. I'm actually in the car traveling. I thought I would already be at my destination before this started, and we are about 5 miles away. So if you hear some noise in the background, it's because we're on the way shortly. So one of the things, more people are attending meetings, and that is because we don't have to travel to get there. And so I think virtual options really opened up some things that may not have necessarily been available as
Hey, Nancy, you're kind of cutting out right now. Do you want to go ahead and just, sorry, go ahead.
Aren't always typically scheduled before or after school, so
All right, Nancy, I think we lost you. Do you want to just go ahead and reconnect whenever you get back to your destination? Amy, we'll just go ahead and move on to you.
Yeah, so the opportunity to have the virtual with video meetings have been incredibly helpful, and I think been able to continue that momentum from the work that was done with the comprehensive local needs assessment. I think the other thing that's been keeping us on track, in a way to say, has been just the requirements that we have with our board and our admin council. So we're having those monthly or bi-monthly discussions already, and making sure that we're consistent with them, but also taking the time to recognize that SEL component, which I think as adults, we kind of sometimes push to the side, or we think that that applies more to our students, our kids, that type of thing. But making sure that we have empathy for each other. And I know I always feel better at the end of the day when small questions come my way and I can attack those versus the large outstanding questions that I know that I don't have the mental capacity for. I don't expect others that I work with to have at this time. And we're definitely keeping a list of those ideas and topics to push back, to look at once, we have a little more structure and a little less of this undefined, unknown area that we're in currently.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. All right. So what aspects of the comprehensive local needs assessment do you think are the most vital for secondary, post-secondary collaboration?
In thinking about the CLNA, I participated in a couple of small group meetings with the Perkins coordinator at Lakeland, and some of her other colleagues that were helping write the CLNA. I found that very helpful. She had kind of put together a draft and then shared that with us. And then we kind of looked at some of the data points, provided feedback, provided information on, we brainstormed just some ideas on how we could collaborate to improve going forward. I felt that that was very, very useful, very helpful to understand some of those things that are going on at the college that I don't have direct interaction with. And I felt that as I could also share some of the activities and things that our office does, I believe that our partners at Lakeland were also able to learn more about what we do and how we actually help the college. We also collaborate a lot on size, scope, and quality as specific points of the CLNA. I attend advisory meetings with the different departments, the business department, the automotive, the ag. They have their annual meetings. I attend all of those. I also, the President's Cabinet has an advisory meeting on an annual basis. I attend that and participate. I also have some specific programs that we collaborate on for student-based events where we take students to campus, and the Lakeland College staff helps us. They provide, their teachers help us and work with the students directly. And those have really built really great relationships. And any opportunity that we have to get students on campus while they're still in high school is a great opportunity to showcase all of the great things going on at our local community college firsthand with those kids. And I think that has really helped build those relationships and those connections between our secondary institutions and post-secondary.
Great, thank you so much, Laura. Nancy, are you back with us? I think I saw you enter the meeting again. All right, Amy, if you want to go ahead, and then we can come back to Nancy maybe if she gets back on.
Yeah, so the CLNA, it was great for me to read NSERBs because it was already done and turned in by the time I took over the position. But don't worry and don't fret, like I still had to do the work for Chicago too. But it was incredibly helpful to have that information and that large project done, stepping into this role and not being able to have those interactions or those face-to-face interactions or going to Oakton's campus or even going to the 5 districts that I support, being on campus with them and meeting their people and their students and that hands-on piece. I feel strongly about the program of study alignment, the interaction with industry partners. I feel that the CLNA gave an opportunity to tag team versus secondary and post-secondary, both reaching out to industry partners. This was something that we encountered quite often in Chicago, and I felt that many of our industry partners expressed, a fatigue of, we were getting reached out, from secondary and post-secondary and this or that. Who do we work with? So I feel that we were able to streamline a better process for understanding how to reach out to industry partners, who to reach out, who does that. One of the things I wanted to share was early on in meeting with city colleges, it was interesting being the only one at the table representing CPS at the time. And the first question that was brought to me was, when are we going to meet those teachers? And it was, and I get that. And I felt the same way too with their faculty and so forth. And definitely going through the CLNA, I think helped identify who the key players were in doing this work and making those connections, which I think was incredibly beneficial. It might not have been written down on the paper, but you are connecting both your secondary and post-secondary, which I think is, it's going to pay off in the long run.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Nancy, are you back on the line yet? If not, we can go ahead and move on to the next question. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to question 4. So sort of switching tracks a little bit. What information, resources, materials, etc., do you think is necessary that your post-secondary partner provide to you?
I feel it's important to make sure we stay connected on course offerings. I know sometimes, I mean, the community college is just like us too. You have staff that retires, you have staff that leaves, and you can't get them replaced before the fall semester starts. And so, and if you don't fill a class, then you move it to a different semester or it's not taught. I think having that collaboration and knowing what those offerings are, even planning new programs. Our college just started a new court reporting program that was kind of, nobody's done that for a while, but there's now a need in the area for court reporters. They let us know that kind of early on, and we reached out to our business teachers. So our business teachers throughout the region could start recruiting their students. They know who might be a good fit for that kind of a career, and could direct students that way. And that program actually, I think, started this fall, or maybe even in the summer. Like I said earlier, I attend a lot of the advisory committee meetings. I attend as many as I can. If not, I receive those agendas and minutes, and I read them all. I like to know what's going on. What do the business partners say they are lacking? What can they offer to help Lakeland? I mean, we've got some really great business partners that donate a lot of equipment and materials and supplies to the college, and that's phenomenal. My mind says these are great employers. I'd want my students to work for them if they're that willing to give back to the community. So it's great that we have that relationship. Our college also offers principals, deans, and counselors meetings in normal years. And that's usually well received. They learn about updates, some program specific information, a lot of dual credit information. And so those are really good. I attend those. Our dual credit department also has annual meetings with usually once or twice a year. And then of course the president's cabinet hosts a professional advisory board meeting in which all of our school superintendents attend. And I definitely think it's important that our EFEs develop a relationship with the dual credit director. Oftentimes there's a misconception that dual credit is only for high school teachers that have master's degrees. Well, we all know in current tech ed, that's not the case. But when they're all grabbing coffee in the break room, well, I have a master's degree, so I teach dual credit. You, the ag teacher, can't. That's not true. And I think it's just making sure we're building those relationships and sharing that information with our high school teachers. That helps build those relationships, increases that dual credit opportunity, and helps get those kids that college experience that they need to give them the leg up in the workforce.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Laura. And I couldn't agree more with sort of the misinformation and just the disconnect sometimes that can happen. I see that Nancy just joined us again. Hi, Nancy. We are on question 4. Hi. Which is, to you, what information, resources, etc., do you think are necessary that your post-secondary partner provide to you?
Well, in my case, we've had a really great collaboration. We've had a lot of really deep conversations about a lot of what Laura was talking about, dual credit, how to coordinate our programs of study so that they enhance student success at the community.
All right, Nancy.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are again. Okay.
We live in pool parking lot, so I hope this would work. I'm working on a hotspot and now I'm on my phone, so I don't know which one's going to work here. So anyway, we're working really closely together on dual credit, on aligning our programs of study to make students more successful at the post-secondary level. I'm having a lot of deep conversations about making sure our program meet industry standards, and we're doing the things that they need us to be doing at the secondary level to make sure students are successful once they get to Carlson.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. All right, Amy.
I'm not too sure what else I can add, but It was definitely interesting to share the labor market data that we were able to come with and what City Colleges was able to come to the table with. That was interesting. Any different studies that we were able to spend funds or partner with, that sharing was well received and very helpful. I want to echo what Laura said about the course offerings, also certifications, lab settings as well. That was very beneficial in the work that we did across CPS when we were revamping our career and tech labs to get some extra insight, outside of industry partners, but also along the lines of curriculum and so forth, and what would transition from secondary to post-secondary alignment successfully for our students.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So moving on to the next question, and all of you have sort of answered this in one way or another a little bit. But what do you think that the colleges can learn from you, or in what ways do secondary representatives contribute to that educational partnership, sort of the inverse of the question that we just answered?
Like I said earlier, we do several activities where we bring students from many school districts to the college campus. One of the largest event is our 8th grade career conference that's hosted in the Lakeland College Field House. We probably have about 2,000 8th grade students that attend, that come to the college for that event over a 2-day period. So we recruit the students, get the guest speaker, kind of plan the agenda for the day. And then Lakeland College recruits business partners to come and do one-on-one, kind of answer some questions. There's like 4 or 5 questions that we give to all the students that they can ask the business presenters about their career. They set up the tables, the business partners come. They also have a lot of their faculty and staff. They're representing business and industry. So the business teachers come and might talk about accounting professions or jobs in finance. Their ag teachers are there and they talk about ag tech and what it means to have a career and how the college can help them obtain that career. We also have a construction trades expo on campus where we bring about 400 students over a 2-day period. And they are in one of the, in the ag building. And we invite construction trades partners to set up tables and booths, and the students are doing hands-on activities. Well, while we're in that building, the industrial tech teacher does some construction trades. The GIS teacher is there talking about highway construction careers. And so we involve the college professors, instructors to also talk about their programs and how they lead, again, to careers in our area. We also have invite the instructors to our CTE instructor advisory meetings. So when we have our business teachers get together, a representative of Lakeland will usually come give us an update on what they're doing, the certifications, activities they might be, or programs they may be hosting for high school students now. And then they collaborate with those teachers. So we've really, we've been around a long time. Our staff has been here a long time. Our college staff doesn't seem to change very much either. So we've really built these relationships and rely on each other to participate and share and collaborate.
Great, thank you so much. Nancy?
One of the things that we've just started having conversations about with Carl Sandburg is actually doing some in-depth deep dive with our counselors around programs of study, and that transition from what students take at the high school level to being able to make that work for them as they transition to the post-secondary level. And I think those are some really important conversations that really will impact directly our students at the secondary level, because our counselors will have a better understanding of what students are doing there has a direct impact on what they will be doing at Carl Sandburg. So I think those partnerships are really important, and I'm really excited that we're going to build in a counselor academy and some of the really innovative things that Carl Sandburg is talking about and doing around counselor professional development. Also, I mean, we have an industry fair, manufacturing day fair. We have a career fair. All those things are on hold due to COVID, but you know, I still think there are a lot of things that we do where we have opportunities to collaborate with them. In my experience, they've always been, you know, willing to listen and let me know what they can and can't do to help our secondary partners. And we just developed the program around the education career pathway grant. And they were amazing to work with in getting dual credit classes set up for our kids at the last minute, because that grant didn't come through until July the 15th. And so, you know, my biggest thing is you've got to ask, and I'm never afraid to ask. I always figure the worst they're going to do is tell me no, and I'll go from there. But they've just been really amazing to work with.
Absolutely great. Thank you so much, Nancy. And I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, all you can do is ask. All right, Amy.
So in my short time here at NSERV, one thing that I have seen over and over again, and just the time and effort and just outstanding leadership within these districts, has been around this push for equity. And what does that aspect look like across the board, and just what's coming out of this, what's developing from that, I guess. And I'm really glad that Mark put in the chat about the career panels that are being hosted at one of the local high schools here. It's at Evanston. I'm really excited to be a fly on the wall when those start to happen, hopefully shortly. And I think it's just a great opportunity, and I'm really excited to hopefully see if we can take that model and apply it to the other 4 districts and see what happens from there.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. So do any of you have any tips or advice for keeping the spirit of collaboration alive? You know, everyone brings different things to the table. Sometimes tensions can run high. And I think we're all maybe a little more stressed out now than we were before in this virtual world. So do you have any tips or advice?
Reach out to each other. We're all in this together. I love to brainstorm ideas. If we had no boundaries, what would it look like? And we can always scale back from there. I mean, brainstorming leads to other ideas, and you know that will actually work. And if we can help students obtain any kind of post-secondary experience, the better off we all are. If our college can increase their enrollments by partnering with us, again, the better we all are to have skilled people working in our communities.
Absolutely.
So I think my biggest kind of takeaway from this year, because this is has been my first year in this EFE position as well, is that we're all working toward the same goal, and that is to get students industry credentials that will allow them to have a living wage career, something that will allow them to raise a family and kind of, you know, buy a house and all those things that sometimes we kind of take for granted, but our end goals are all the same. And I'm going to just say again what Laura just said, and that is that, you know, the street kind of runs both ways, and that is, while we need to reach out to you, please don't ever hesitate to reach out to your EFE director. If you have something that's going on at the community college that is directly impacting students.
It's like she's about to give us the secret to it all and then it goes mute.
All right, Nancy, we'll come back to you if you have anything
you
else
hear
to
me?
add. There you
Can
are.
you hear me?
Yep.
I'm sorry.
That's
I'm just
okay.
saying
No.
ways, and that is that you have going on at the community college that directly impacts that high school. Reach out to your EFE system director, because we have money that we can help with those things. And so I was just encouraging everyone to, really don't forget we're there and we're an absolute wonderful resource, and that we can provide support and manpower and money if necessary. Oh.
Thank you, Nancy. All right. Next, or did all three already answer?
I can just go quickly. I would
Great,
say,
Amy, thank you.
if you have anything that's student focused, we should talk. That's literally, I mean, that sums it up for me. If it's student focused, we should talk.
That's a great way to look at it, Amy. I mean, that's why we're all here. So if you keep that in mind at the top of your totem pole, I think you'll be okay. Whitney, did you have anything to add? And you jumped in there. Did you want to say anything before I open it up to the floor for questions?
No, I think this has been really helpful and really speaks to the spirit of collaboration as we move forward. I know there has been some, rocky relationships in the past, and I think, as Amy and Laura and Nancy have all stated, if we remain student focused, we all share the same goal. And it's important to know that, our collaboration only benefits the students, and any difficulties or conflicts is a consequence at the consequence to the student. So I think it's really important to maintain that partnership and be speaking the same message. There is significant skill shortages in many sectors in Illinois. So there are enough jobs, especially in today's environment, to go around. So we should be working in lockstep and unison to fill those positions by providing students opportunities. And so it's not in competition with one another, it is in collaboration as we continue to build the pipeline from secondary to post-secondary and beyond, right? So we wanted to just bring some EFEs in to share their experiences and the ways in which they work with students and the ways in which they would like to see this partnership. I do want to open it up to some of our post-secondary folks to ask questions, because some of them have better relationships with their EFE and others. And I know that our district jurisdictions or alignment, are really misaligned, which I think doesn't really benefit the collaboration. So some are more closely tied than others. So I want to open it up for our post-secondary Perkins administrators.
Yes, and it may be easier if you unmute yourself and vocalize your question. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, please feel free to type your question in the chat pane.
This is Ellen from Sandburg. I have a question for Jane from Lewis and Clark. I really like your idea of this advisory committee with the unified meeting. So my question is, when each program holds their second meeting, do you still have all of the college leadership at those second meetings, or do they mainly attend that main unified meeting?
They are invited to those meetings. Whether they show up, I think, depends upon their schedules. I get all the minutes and agendas from the coordinators when they send them in after the meetings. But generally, I don't have time to look to see exactly how many are showing up. But I know they are fully aware they have to have a quorum before the meeting's official. So, but I do know there are some administrators that will try to attend as many as they can.
Thanks, Jane.
right, does anyone else have a question? Let's see.
We have one in the chat, Natasha.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Amy.
How many of the EFE districts have a community college representation on the Board of Control Committee, either as a member or at least as a resource member, is the question.
I'm not sure of that. I don't know if Laura, Nancy, or Amy could speak to their personal experience, if they know of anyone who is on their board, but I'm not sure of that information myself.
So this is Nancy. I do not, that be an idea that I would absolutely be open to. We would have to amend our joint agreements with our school districts to allow that person to attend as a non-voting member.
Thank you, Nancy. Are there any other questions for each other or for our panelists? If you think back to your own experiences when you were doing the CLNA or writing your local application, is there anything that you wish, now that you could have asked, or any ways that you wish you would have partnered that you didn't think to at the time or weren't able to, anything like that? Don't everyone ask questions at once now. Okay, if there are no other questions, I want to echo Whitney's sentiments and thank the panelists so much for agreeing to be with us today and take their time to answer some of our questions and keeping the spirit of collaboration alive. So thank you all so much. I think it was really helpful and I think we learned a lot. So we appreciate you coming. Thank you.
Thanks. Can I just point out one other small thing?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sorry. So in the spirit of collaboration and talking about, the misconceptions of dual credit, it's also been vice versa. I was at an advisory meeting and one of the instructors at that advisory meeting goes, well, I don't want the high school to offer dual credit. What classes would they take then if they came to the college? They wouldn't need to take my classes. But it's not that they still need to take your classes. They just won't need to take as many and you could still earn that certificate or degree program. His area was actually a very specialized area and that not many schools would be able to offer dual credit in that CTE area. And not many, there would only be one class. I just found that shocking that he doesn't want to collaborate for high schools to have that dual credit because he didn't want to take away from enrollments in his own program. So I don't know if that is a common misconception or a common misunderstanding, but as we open up the collaboration avenues, that's always something to keep in mind in case that happens to be the negative thought around that on one end or the other.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Laura. And I never really heard of that. Has anyone else encountered a similar issue or a similar mindset?
This is Amanda from Rock Valley College, and we have run into that as well at times. And really it's they're worried about their jobs. So, as we really put a push to increase dual credit in the past few years, they then have the concern that, okay, if the dual credit takes all of our courses, then what are we going to have left to teach? And so what we've tried to combat that with, or help reframe their thoughts, that they will take the introductory classes as dual credit, and then there will be more of the advanced classes available, or possibly be even more sections available once the dual credit matriculate over to our college. And so, you know, oftentimes those are the more advanced classes are what they really enjoy teaching. So sometimes we can get more buy-in that way.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Amanda. And a few folks are posting into the chat about reframing the conversation, and that's a very common fear among faculty, particularly. I mean, dual credit can be a contentious conversation, largely because we're seeing it pushed and expanded in times, as Kathy pointed out, and during, you know, slim budgets, right? And so we're continuing to do more with less. And so actually most of the data shows that it doesn't actually decrease the amount of offerings that will be offered, that actually it increases the enrollment. If you're providing that intentional, right? If we're about to talk about programs to study, if you provide that intentional sequence of courses, right? You're providing those foundational courses in the secondary, and then they matriculate into the post-secondary and take courses at the community college. So the data actually points to the opposite of what Laura was saying. So thank you for bringing that up, Laura.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you, Whitney. Are there any other questions or any other thoughts or anything like that? We're doing really good on time, so if you have a question, please don't hesitate to ask.
Any other final comments from our panelists? And you're welcome to stay throughout the meeting. I know I saw a few other EFEs were on here as well. So just a reminder that this is for post-secondary folks. So we're not providing any secondary guidance, but you guys are happy to join and listen in and participate.
All right, I think with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the next portion of our meeting. Again, thank you so much to the panelists for participating and sharing your wealth of knowledge with us. So, okay, hold on. All right, I'll now turn the floor over to Dr. Amy Julian and Brittany Boston, both from the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support, or ICSPS. As a quick aside, I would also like to express extreme gratitude for the amount of time and effort that the ICSPS and their partner adult ed professional development agencies have put into making this year's forum a success. You all have absolutely no idea the amount of work it takes to pull off something like this on such short notice without having any prior experience of doing so. So thank you again so much to both of you and your partner agencies. So with that, take it away, Amy and Brittany.
Thank you, Natasha. So we have the Illinois CTE Networking Directory, and we're going to speak about that and the post-secondary learning community. And I will take the networking directory, and then I will let Brittany speak to the post-secondary learning community. So the CTE Networking Directory you started to hear about last March, which I think was the last time we were all physically together at the Crown Plaza in Springfield. And the networking directory is designed to assist career and technical education leadership and our partners, so secondary, post-secondary, workforce partners in networking and sharing information. And again, partners are included but not limited to post-secondary Perkins, coordinators and directors, education for employment directors, career deans, adult education administrators, workforce partners, and dual credit coordinators. And so what you're able to do is two things. One, if you are attending the forum and you have seen the Whova app, there is an on-demand video that walks you through exactly how to go on and engage with the CTE networking directory, how to become a part of the CTE networking directory, and then how to search the CTE networking directory. So I encourage you to look at that. And then in addition to that, there's a link there, and that'll allow you to put that activity into action. Those of you, and I see the faces there's some of you who have been around for a while. If you remember, there was a paper product for the CTE networking directory a few years ago, and you could actually look at it like a telephone book. That is still a possibility. If you choose to, you can print that document off. So you can go in, join the CTU networking directory, and then format that and print it off. And if you have any issues, contact Connie in our office and she'll be able to help you with that. We are not printing copies, but you do have everything online at your fingertips, whether it be on your phone or your computer. So I want to just open the floor to any questions regarding the networking directory. I do encourage you to check out the on-demand video because it really walks you through exactly what it will look like and then what it looks like as you are into the networking directory itself. With that, I'm going to hand the floor over to Brittany, and she's going to talk about our post-secondary CT learning community that we are moving to Microsoft Teams. So in the age of virtual engagement, we're going to embrace Teams. So Brittany?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. As Amy said, my name is Brittany Boston. I do want to add, so as Amy mentioned, the walkthrough of the CTE networking directory is available in the on-demand on Whova, but it is also housed within our ICSPS website. So if you go to the ICSPS website, our CTE tab, we have a whole page for the Illinois CTE networking directory. So you can find it there as well. Okay, so CTE learning community. As Amy mentioned, the last time we were actually all face-to-face before the earth stood still was the spring PAC meeting. And at that meeting, Patty Zuccarello graciously started a conversation about the CTE learning community and kind of how we want to reframe it, reshape it. And then, you know, COVID happened and pandemic happened and everything moved virtual. So we are going to find the silver lining in that and benefit and capitalize on the fact that a lot of us, if not all of us, are still working virtually. And as Amy said, we are moving the learning community to the Microsoft Teams platform. And so the reason we're doing that is because the learning community was meeting once a month and it was almost turning into mini professional development sessions, which I know many of you participated in and I'm hoping many of you enjoyed. But between ICSPS and ICCB, we have plenty of professional development and webinars that we will be providing you. So we really want to give you a platform to network and collaborate with your fellow programs. Now, especially more than ever, and I'm going to use a phrase that I'm so tired of hearing, but we are in unprecedented times. And so being able to reach out to your fellow programs and your fellow colleagues and say, hey, what are you guys doing? How are you engaging your students? You know, what is your program looking like? Or we've been doing this and it's been working really well. That's what we want these learning communities to be. And so with Microsoft Teams, and I would imagine many of you are probably familiar with the platform. If not, no worries. We have some resources and Todd Jorns at ICCB knows Microsoft Teams and we could even set up a separate training with him if needed. But on Teams, you can private message, you can video chat, you can set up scheduled video chats, you can share files, you can use it like sort of a message board and really just post and interact with everybody at your own convenience in a central location. Because I would imagine all of us, our emails are being overloaded. And if you're like me, sometimes it's hard to keep track and it's, did I respond to that? No, I didn't. Okay, so this way you have a central location for all things Perkins. And we're gonna start it out, I'm gonna call this our quote unquote pilot year. So we're gonna start it out simply with post-secondary Perkins administrators. And we'll give it sort of a test run this year, see how you guys are interacting with it, if it's beneficial, if you're liking it. And then we can talk about maybe opening it up to some more participants and a larger platform. But that is our game plan for right now. So not this week, obviously, but next week, I will be getting everybody connected into Microsoft Teams. ICCB has kindly shared all of the post-secondary Perkins administrators' emails addresses. So within the next week, you should be getting an email from Microsoft Teams saying that you were added to the ICSPS CTE learning community. So be on the lookout for those. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, hey, Brittany, let's try this with the CTE learning communities, please feel free to email me, because this is for you guys. We want this to be something that you will utilize, is beneficial to you, and is helping you network and collaborate with your fellow programs. So any questions on the learning community? Okay, so I did have one pop up saying, will there be channels in the Microsoft Teams for special topics, or will it primarily be the general channel? So I will say that the current one we are using is the free version at the moment, since we are piloting it. I believe that you can break out into separate channels, but I am not 100% positive. Oh, Amy says yes. Thank you, Amy.
Yes, we'll be able to have channels on different topics for the learning community. So you can come in and participate on the different channels.
Yep, so you guys can really customize it for, you know, those hot topics and what is appropriate for your programs. All right, well, if there's no more questions for me, I'll hand it back over to ICCB.
Thanks, Brittany. All right, Tasha, if you could advance the slides. So now we're going to talk about programs of study. I'm going to first share about the models and guides, since many of you have been involved in that process. And then we will also start to go into the approval process and then walk through the programs of study expectations tool. So I'm going to first start by talking about the models and guides. So the primary purpose and goal for these models, and hopefully many of you have seen them, they're all in draft form at the moment, and they will be released by the end of this month and formally adopted. But we wanted to provide some guidance and some exemplary models for your local programs to adopt and customize as you develop your programs of study for approval per the Perkins 5 state plan. So per the Act, we're required to create models for you for adoption. But again, you can tailor these as fit. And these are just models, these are just guides. They're not all encompassing, and they don't even include every single program of study. And we'll talk a little bit about the methodology for why we included certain programs and occupations and why we didn't include the others. This is also to establish a framework for us as state agencies as we develop and implement supports for you, right, as you're creating, developing, and evaluating your programs of study. Within the models, we wanted to identify some priority dual credit courses that are foundational for the particular sector and are well situated for statewide scaling and articulation. So we wanted this to be intentional. So we talked about dual credit a little bit earlier and some of the contention around that. We want to make sure that this is not random acts of dual credit. We want to make sure that students are taking intentional dual credit courses, both in the academic and CTE side, but that really lends itself to that really seamless transition from secondary to post-secondary. Within the models and guides, we have utilized some of our past resources and working groups that were employer-led to further define the competencies that should be included in these programs of study, and then identified potential entry points for students, but also, you know, where are some good opportunities for employers to be engaged. So we've identified a variety of work-based learning opportunities utilizing the work-based learning continuum that can be integrated into the secondary as well as the post-secondary components of the program. Next. So this was done in collaboration with the State Board of Education, and it aligns with their course codes as well as their approval process. We're still finalizing some things around that, but the ones that were developed that will be released here in a few weeks include programs in education, health sciences, information technology, manufacturing, and engineering. Those that we'll be focusing on for this next fiscal year include those, and you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, arts and communication, finance and business, ag, food, natural resources, and architecture, construction, and energy. So as we were developing these, we utilized the statewide labor market information to start with the ones that were most in demand and had the most opportunities for students in high skill, high wage, in demand occupations. So that's sort of why we started with this first 4, and now we're moving into the next 4. And Illinois is a little bit unique because we do have such a diverse state as it relates to sector representation. So if you look at other states, Perkins plans, they may only have allow you to have programs in maybe these 8 areas, where we actually have sector representation from all 16 career clusters, including energy too. So that is why we're sort of moving in this phased approach. And hopefully by the end of the state plan, so 4 years from now, we have models in each career cluster. So the methodology for identifying the programs, creating the programs, and to be included in this guide are listed here. So we first started with, these were not built in an office, so we included representatives from, secondary, post-secondary, and employers, and that's the most important part that we had, in business and industry representing and providing that feedback. So we didn't want to. We ended up backwards mapping it, right, from employment down into post-secondary, down into secondary, not the other way around. So backwards design. So first we identified and looked at the labor market information to identify those high priority occupations. So we're looking for those that are categorized as high skill, high wage, and in demand. And then from there, we identified some promising post-secondary credentials. So those are degrees or certificates that are broadly accessible throughout the Illinois community college system, and lead to those high priority occupations. And then we mapped the degrees and certificates that are stackable, and identified industry-based certifications and credentials that were embedded within these programs. And then we identified the strategic community college courses that appear across the maximum number of promising credentials, again, which provide for that broad foundation that are feasible for dual credit delivery, so being really intentional. And then we mapped the course sequence from secondary to the first year of post-secondary. And so we also embedded the college and career pathway endorsement framework in here. So there's, you'll see in a couple of slides, the required work-based learning components, as well as the 6 credits of early college credit. And then lastly, we defined the related technical competencies for these foundational courses, which could be used as a guide by both secondary and post-secondary folks as they develop these programs. All right, so as I was talking about in terms of selecting the occupations that we would focus on building the program study models out for, you can see here the programs are listed on the left, the occupations that these programs prepare students for, whether it met the living wage threshold, which is 1 adult, 1 child, the median hourly wage, the growth projection in Illinois, and then if there were any stackable credentials. And so that information just helped inform which models we were going to focus on. These are the competencies. So starting with the competencies in mind, you can see on the left are the technical competency statements for IT specifically as a sector. And then on the right, you can see the competency specific to introduction to computer information systems. So some of the foundational courses that were included in the sequence. And we have these mapped for each sector. So I'm going to go over the secondary component first, and then I'll talk about the post-secondary, and then you'll be able to see a slide where it shows these all together. So you can see here on the screen how we have the career-focused courses, and I do want to make a note that this is being slightly revised, so don't like take a screenshot and use this. The guide will have the updated courses in it, you can see the career focused courses here. You can see the work-based learning opportunities here. And at the bottom, it has a legend for sort of the different course, whether it's a dual credit course, whether it's a dual credit course that has an IAI code, which makes it easily transferable between 2-year and 4-year institutions. You can see that the college and career pathway endorsement, where that can be earned. And actually it also includes, if you pull up the full diagram, it includes the general education courses that can be included in this high school experience based on the graduation requirements, but also based on any identified math or English courses or science courses that are recommended for the particular program of study. All right, so as you move into the post-secondary portion of it, what it shows is a number of programs of study. So I think that's really important that this picture as a whole is kind of a career pathway approach, but we're focusing on multiple programs of study, and it shows the stackability and the different certifications and certificates that can be earned, and the progression from the AAS to the Bachelor of Science. So showing that there's a lot of opportunities for students and providing that foundational coursework in secondary, right, which then gives them an opportunity to sort of choose from there which particular programs of study they would like to move into. So I think that's a really important point to make. And if you go to the next slide, it shows sort of the diagram as a whole and how it fits together. Yeah, so you can see sort of on the left, the full range of courses for secondary, and then it sort of moves into the post-secondary path. So again, it's about providing that foundational base for students in secondary that they can take these courses, and that prepares them for a number of options within a particular sector. And so this would help you because it provides some of the course sequences for the secondary side. This also means that you have to work with your secondary partner to make sure that these are the courses that are available to these students and are the courses that they will be utilizing. Again, this can be tailored locally, but this is just a guide. And as you think about when we get to talking about the program of study approval process, you will have to submit the post-secondary course sequence that goes along with each program of study. So before you, Tasha, before you jump into the approval process, I just wanted to note that we will have some additional professional development opportunities on the program of study guides and models throughout this next year. And we will be asking folks to serve on these advisory committees that are putting together these guides, right? These are not developed by state staff. These are developed by employers and in consultation with secondary and post-secondary folks led by Northern Illinois University. So we're going to be doing a lot more professional development on this. If you have particular questions, please feel free to reach out to me. and we can try to get those answered. Any comments or questions? If you served on one of these groups, if you want to share sort of your experience or some of the conversations that were had, that would be helpful.
I can weigh in on the marketing one if you'd like, Whitney.
Sure, Angela.
So when not the marketing, I said wrong word,
I know, I'm
manufacturing.
like, wait,
That's probably
what?
why you were confused.
Yeah.
Sorry, manufacturing. I served on the manufacturing, and like Whitney said, it was a very diverse group. There was manufacturers associations, there was businesses, there was colleges, myself from ICCB, somebody from ISBE. There was a wide range of people, and it was definitely an open discussion. It was, there was a couple people that were doing a lot of the spearheading of it and putting it all together, and then they would bring it back to the group, and they were open to changes. And okay, well, this won't work for a college level, or this won't work, this will work at a high school level, should we try this? So there was, and the employers weighed in and said, well, those are great, but we don't care about that. We need this. And so again, it was that open conversation and open dialogue that I think makes these, really well thought out. It's not just the employers doing it or just the education side doing it. It's the mixture of everybody.
Absolutely. And, I think it's really important that we focused mostly on the most common industry recognized credentials, such as those in CompTIA, Microsoft, Google, but there are a number of other of credentials in early childhood or IT, manufacturing, of course, right? But so it's really important to note that, like, if you're working with a local employer and they would like a particular credential that's not included in this, like, that's why it's appropriate to tailor it. But these are sort of these are the state models, right? These are the most common sort of models that you can adopt, right? It's a starting conversation, a starting point to as a resource to help you build your program of study. And I think the methodology is really important for the secondary, post-secondary employer partnerships as you're thinking about sort of how to develop and what you should consider in development. It shouldn't just be what do we have on the books, what teachers we have qualified to do this. I mean, obviously those are important conversations, but that shouldn't be the starting point for what types of courses you offer and what programs you offer, right? And so I think that's really important point to make. These are going to be living documents, so they may be reviewed and revised throughout the year. So I think that's really important to note. Yeah, I think that's it. We're not seeing any questions. I don't know if that's good or bad. You guys are even more quiet in a virtual environment,
So Whitney, we did have one come through, but I have a feeling Tasha's going to touch on this when she talks about the approval process. Will the CLNA info be included in the programs of study approval process?
Okay. We'll answer that question after I finish talking about the approval process. Deal?
yeah, because that might offer, yeah, she's about to go into the approval process. So I know that's
okay.
All right, go ahead, Tasha.
Okay, thank you so much, Whitney. And so now I'm going to jump into the program of study approval process that we rolled out at the end of last fiscal year. So as you know, this is something new and we've never really gotten to discuss it at any meetings or anything like that. So we wanted to make sure and include it today and to hopefully address any lingering questions you may have. So as you know, in order for CTE programs to be funded with federal Perkins dollars, Programs must meet or be working toward the state's definition of size, scope, and quality in order to be deemed a program of study. So this definition of size, scope, and quality can be found on pages 24 through 31 of the Illinois State Perkins Plan, and it can also be found within and embedded into the Programs of Study Expectations tool, which Brittany is going to touch on after I'm finished here. So we've received a lot of questions like, well, haven't you been approving our programs of study every year in our annual Perkins plan on the programs of study inventory form? And so the answer to that is yes and no. So prior to Perkins 5, the ICCB required colleges to identify programs of study that met the definition of a program of study under Perkins 4. So the ICCB did not and was not required to formally approve those programs of study. Under Perkins 5 law, not only did Perkins 5 expand the definition of a program of study, it also requires states now to have an official approval process for approving those locally developed programs of study. Okay, so here's a timeline that we put together to show you when you really need to submit these programs for approval. Now remember, you only have to submit programs for approval that you want to fund with Perkins dollars. So when we say institutions can fund CTE programs for 2 years and be working toward the size, scope, and quality components, but prior to the 3rd year, the CTE program must meet the definition of a program of study and be approved by the ICCB in order to be continued, in order to continue to be eligible for Perkins funding. So what does that mean in terms of actual dates? Because I know sometimes it's hard to keep track of academic years and fiscal years and crossing fiscal years and stuff like that. So we wanted to make sure we made this timeline for you. So July 1st of 2020 through June 30th of 2022, you can fund your CTE programs with federal Perkins funds and be working toward meeting that size, scope, and quality criteria, okay? So on July 1st of 2022, which is the start of fiscal year 23, in order to continue to be eligible for federal Perkins funds, a CTE program must, 1, meet the size, scope, and quality criteria, 2, meet the definition of a program of study under Perkins 5, and 3, be approved by the ICCB by submitting a program of study approval form. Approval forms can be submitted at any point during the year. You don't have to wait until right before the fiscal year, or you don't have to, submit it with your local application materials. It can be submitted at any time. So don't let anything hold you back doing that. Here at the bottom of the screen is where you can access the form that's on our website. And I didn't go into details on these slides about what else needs to be included with the form when you're submitting something for approval. But sort of like Whitney said, you need that sequence of courses, any like stackable credentials or certificates, and all the information is listed within the approval form. So, okay, so most of the other questions that we've received around the approval process is regarding the programs of study inventory form, which as you know, is part of your local application. So only ICCB approved programs of study should be listed within the programs of study inventory form. So that means that technically no one should have any programs of study listed within their inventory form, as no colleges have actually submitted a program of study approval form. So some of you are probably like, oh my gosh, I put stuff on my inventory form and you didn't say anything. So if you did list programs on your inventory form when you submitted for your FY21 through 24 application, that's okay. But please note that those programs that you listed on that form must all be submitted for approval in FY23 or before that. So if you listed every single CTE program of study you have at your college on that form, you're going to need to list all of those. You're going to need to submit all of those for approval to us by fiscal year 23. So if you're freaking out now, please don't freak out. All you have to do is contact us and say, you know, I don't want to list these on here. You know, we're not funding all of these right at this time. So you can work with your CTE liaison on that. So once you do receive an approval from ICCB, I would encourage you to update the inventory form. You don't have to by any means, but it might be a good way to keep track of that, especially if you are submitting more than one program for approval at a time. And that it might just be a good way to keep track of those things. Excuse me. You do not need to send ICCB an updated inventory form every time one of your programs of study is approved. So every time you receive an approval from us, please do not send us a new inventory form. That's just going to be way too much to keep track of. Wait to send it with your local Perkins application before the next fiscal year. And again, just to reiterate, all of your programs of study listed within the inventory form have not been formally approved. So that's all I have about the approval process. I'm trying to think back to what that question was. Brittany, can you say that question again about the CLNA?
Yeah, let me find it really quick. Will the CLNA info be included in the POS approval process?
So I'm not exactly sure what the owner of that question is talking about specifically. What parts of the CLNA are you specifically asking? Are you asking if the whole thing needs to be attached to the approval form, or are you thinking more like labor market information? Do you want to clarify that a little bit?
And feel free to either type that in the chat or you can unmute yourself as well.
I know there are certain aspects of the CLNA that you can pull out and put into your approval process. Off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything other than evidentiary support that throughout the CLNA process, it was determined that this program of study is needed throughout your area, according to the labor market information that you glean from doing your CLNA. Those types of things, yes, will need to be included as evidentiary support when you're submitting that program of study for approval. But anything beyond that, if you would specify, please, I would be grateful for that. While we were waiting for that, are there any other questions? Does anyone want to unmute themselves and ask a question, or are there any other questions in the chat pane?
Hi, good afternoon. This is Maria.
Hi, Maria.
From City Council of Chicago. I have a question. I'm going back to the funding program of studies. So for example, if an institution is funding criminal justice for their FY21, and let's say they're putting the plan for FY22. If an FY23, the application for program of study for the criminal justice has not been submitted, they no longer can fund the criminal justice moving forward?
Correct, until they submit that program of study for approval. Okay. That's correct.
But they're funding it currently.
That's why we're trying to give sorry, Maria, go ahead.
So, but if they're funding it currently, right at this time, and they still have not submitted or listed it, that would be okay.
Yes, until fiscal year 23. So that's why we're trying to give everyone that 2-year leeway, because I know, especially for colleges that have a lot of programs of study, it's going to be a heavy lift. But you know, once it's done, it's done. But that's why we wanted to give everyone enough time to be able to do that and do it well. And also allow enough time for ICCB to review those and get the approval back to you. So if you've submitted something, within a few weeks before the FY23 forms are due, and you haven't heard anything from ICCB, just reach out to us, and we'll try our best to, within a couple of weeks, get that approval or not approval out to you. If something's not approved, we'll work with you to try to kind of figure out where the misalignment might be so we can get that program of study approved.
Okay, thank you. So the second part of this would be, I lost my fear. I'm sorry, I lost my fear with that. So basically the colleges should be drilling down to the actual program of studies that they would like to submit the application for, so that way they can have it on the docket for FY23 and not just fund basically any program if that's not the intent of a program of study.
Correct. It's kind of hard to hear you, Maria. As far as I could hear you, yes, that's correct. And really the purpose of this from the law is to be more intentional about what programs we're funding, and making sure that those programs are part of our program of study or our program of study, and making sure those alignment and those connections are there with your secondary partners and industry. So thank you for your questions, Maria. Does anyone else have a question?
There's some questions in the chat. I'm going to kind of summarize it here. So there's some questions about some short-term programs like CNA, maybe even truck driving, where there may not be an opportunity for it to be an actual program of study, right? As we think about that secondary to post-secondary sequence of courses. And so kind of going back to what Tasha says, this funding is sort of to be intentional and to support those secondary to post-secondary transitions, right? Secondary has their CTE courses and programs, post-secondary has their programs. We're focusing on the program of study, which is that secondary to post-secondary sequence of courses. So I think, in Jane's example, where a CNA, where there is they do not offer any dual credit for their CNA or connect to the secondary, then no, that does not consider it a program of study. Although in Bonnie's case, which is growing but not a common practice, CNAs, it could be a pre-admission criteria for their nursing program, and therefore it would be considered a stackable credential within a larger nursing pathway, and that would be fine.
Thank you so much, Whitney. Are there any other questions in the chat pane, or does anyone else want to bravely unmute their microphones and ask a question?
Jonita from College of DuPage asked if a program of study would be approved if they only have the program of study with one high school. And yes, I mean, that's yes. If you have it with one high school, right, like that's a good, that's intentional. Obviously, we want to be able to offer these programs with multiple high schools in your area, but we understand that may not be the case. But yes, the minimum requirement is one high school.
Anybody else?
Mark asks about the EMT as a prereq for paramedic. Yes, that would count as a program of study. Again, you got to make sure you have that secondary connection. There are potential work-based learning opportunities, right? And so we're really raising the bar in terms of quality about these programs of study. This does not mean that you cannot use your state CTE funds to support these programs, or as we have competitive opportunities that you can't use those to support other programs. But this is really about intentionally focusing the minimum amount of federal funding we have on these secondary to post-secondary transitions. Someone asked earlier in the chat about what does it mean to be funded, a program of study that's funded by Perkins, right? Is it just $1 that you're using, or what is it? And we haven't really outlined this we haven't really outlined this, and we probably will, right? You have 2 years to sort of work on this and develop this, and we will probably have more clear guidance on what that means. Right now, we're mostly just saying, you know, if you're buying equipment for that program, if you're paying instructors of that program, we're not going to be real nitpicky about it, but regardless what guidance we end up putting out, professional development and direct student support services will always be allowed regardless if it's an approved program of study or not. So you will always be able to help students with transportation, just as long as it's a CTE program. It doesn't matter if it's a program of study that's been approved.
Thanks, Whitney. That's a really good point to make. Anybody else before we turn it over? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Whit.
Sorry, Jennifer asked for short-term programs, as mentioned above, where it's stacked into a larger program. Is that included in the form for approval within the larger program? Yes, so you would show the progression of courses from secondary to post-secondary and the potential stackable credentials that could be earned, right? As a student moves through. So they may be able to earn their CNA, right, in secondary and then move into their nursing program at the post-secondary level. Or what's a little bit more unique or specific to the post-secondary program, you can also include your integrated education and training pathways in there too, right, as a stackable credential. All right, so for the sake of time, we're going to move forward, and you can keep putting questions in the chat and we will answer that through a FAQ.
All right, with that, go ahead and take it away, Brittany.
Okay, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this unless Tasha and Whitney tell me otherwise, but we did unveil the Programs of Study Expectations tool at the spring PAC meeting. It was still in semi-draft form, but there weren't too many major additions or edits that were made. So the final version is up on the ICSPS website, which is linked in this slide, and also on ICCB's website. We also have hard copies available as well. And so we have not dispersed those just because, you know, some people, again, working from home aren't on campus. So if you would like to have a hard copy of it, please either email myself or Amy, and we can snail mail those out to you. But the Programs of Study Expectations tool was really just updated and revitalized to reflect Perkins 5 and the updated and new definitions of size, scope, and quality that are in the state plan, and then really just kind of lists out and provides you with some additional tools that are available when you're, you know, looking at your programs of study and kind of evaluating them, whether you're starting a new programs of study, scaling a current one. It's really just meant for you to kind of get in there, make sure you're meeting the criteria of a programs of study. And it's kind of broken down into different sections, which you guys can view at a later time if you'd like. And it is a fillable form. So you can get in there, you can type in it, you can make notes, you can go back and change your notes, however you want to do it, and really utilize it for, you know, really looking at your programs of study and making sure that all I's are dotted and T's are crossed. So yeah, if you guys have any questions about it, or if Tasha, Whitney, there's something else that you wanted me to share that I didn't miss, just let me know.
I don't know Brittany, if you're able to sort of click on that and maybe just kind of walk through maybe just like 2 of them. We don't have time to go through all 10 quality components, but just kind of show them what it looks like and maybe walk through one as an example. We've had a lot of questions about, the program of study approval process and the evidence that would support each of the quality components. And if you're utilizing the expectations tool, and it's fillable, as Brittany said, you should be able to meet all of the criteria and have a good foundation for your program of study and really understand sort of why all of these quality components matter, but what are the particular things that you need to do to make that program quality per the definition of Perkins.
Yeah, Tasha, if you can click on that and open that up for me since it's on your screen, that would be great. Okay, well, while she's trying to get that to open, I don't know if it will open, but we did, when the expectations tool was being put together, we looked at the state plan and really used the state plan to sort of guide the structure of it, so to speak. So let me see if I can share my screen here and get it open. Just 1 second, everyone.
I was going to say, I have it up if you want me to share my screen.
Oh, do you? Perfect. Yes, because I didn't have mine up.
But if someone can give me screen sharing ability.
Yep.
I just did.
Thank you. And Lori just said that it comes up as something about a bad request. So we want to make sure whatever link you're using, Lori, maybe you're using the PowerPoint. So it is on our website though, if you Google Program of Study Expectations tool. All right, so this is what it looks like when you open it. Is everyone seeing my screen?
Yeah. Yeah, and so, typical content of instructions, introduction. We have in there what the requirements of a program of study are, because obviously that's our goal, is we want to make sure we're meeting those criteria and those requirements. And those came directly from Perkins 5 and from the Illinois State Plan. And then here you can get in there and enter in your program of study, enter in the specifics about the particular program of study and who your partners are, to really have a visual of who is engaged, who maybe you still need to try and get engaged and reached out to, but just really to have that there as sort of a visual. And then just some definitions that, are important to have. Okay, and so here is where we we do get into the meat of the expectations tool. So it is broken down into what we refer to as quality components, which are mirroring those within the state plan. And now they are a little different, simply because this is specifically for post-secondary. So they're not exactly the same, but they do really mirror the state plan and what those quality components are and what needs to be utilized. And then it breaks it down into this little grid of what those design elements are and for a programs of study and the expectations as well. And then really those acceptable, those supporting materials of what can be used to sort of meet those expectations, and then that status of whether, you're working on it, it's still a work in progress, we're meeting those expectations, or you know what, we are so innovative and going above and beyond, and we are exceeding those expectations of what a program of study is. And I believe it's broken down into 9 quality components. Don't quote me on that. But again, we just wanted to make sure, when I say we, largely ICCB as well as ICSPS, we wanted to make sure that it really is mirroring Perkins 5 and the state plan and meeting all of the criteria and the expectations that you're supposed to for a program of study. And then down at the end, we also have some additional resources linked in there as well, just to kind of help give a full picture and provide you with some additional information that might be useful when utilizing this tool and looking at your programs of study.
Thank you, Brittany, and I apologize if I put you on the spot there, but I know you created this thing basically from scratch.
No, you're
so
fine. I see it in my dreams now, so it's okay.
So we developed this with the post-secondary in mind as we think about some of the requirements and reference to administrative rules, but this can most definitely be used in the secondary space, or it must be used in partnership, right, with secondary partners. But as some of the EFE folks in the line, if you want to use this and utilize this, it meets the expectations of the quality components, which could apply to both secondary and post-secondary, right? And remember that we're talking about a program of study, which is a shared sequence with secondary and post-secondary. So definitely feel free to use this. I know that there was maybe some conversations about making some edits to be more applicable from a secondary perspective. But Janelle, Ann, and I will be doing a presentation on the differences between a program of study and a career pathway. So there's been a lot of questions about what is the difference. It's kind of confusing, right? Because, Perkins laid out this nice standard definition of a program of study, but then the Department of Ed made us define quality components of that. And so we did, and it's very much looking like a career pathway, right? As we think about some of the components, the quality components here. And so we encourage you to join our session because we're going to talk about the difference between the two. And the main differences is that a program of study is that secondary to post-secondary transition and sequence of courses, and a career pathway is the larger career path as we think about adult students, right? As we think about those maybe exiting the military, right? So different entry and exit points in the larger career path. So I just wanted to put a plug in there for our session.
Yep, and I went ahead and popped in the expectations tool link that's linked through ICSPS's website. So feel free to open that and browse it. Obviously not right now because, ICCB needs your full attention, but when you have a moment, open that and check it out.
All right. Hello, everybody. This is Nicole Jerger with the ICCB. I'm Associate Director for Career and Technical Education. I'm glad to be back with you guys. And we're going to go over just a few reminders. I think we go over this quite a bit each meeting, it seems like, but it is nice to just have that reminder, especially after such quick changes that were recently adapted due to COVID and all the date changes. So, Tasha, could you go to the next slide? Thank you. Let me mute this here. For reporting, so colleges are required to submit programmatic and financial quarterly reports 30 days after the end of each quarter. So if you see that schedule below, we are back to our normal reporting dates. Programmatic reporting is located within the annual work template, so that's different than previous years, but I'm sure you noticed it as you were completing that. Financial reporting is located on a separate spreadsheet, just like we've always had. And both are due to the ICCB CTE mailbox at their respective due dates. Next slide, Tasha. Thank you. In terms of risk conditions and reporting, so grant recipients were to complete an institutional assessment, which is the ICQ or internal controls questionnaire, as well as a grant-specific programmatic risk assessment. And what do these documents do? These assessments determine the recipient's risk level, and the ICQ risk conditions affect all grants at an institution and individual grants like the Perkins basic grant. Colleges can have physical or programmatic risk conditions, physical and programmatic risk conditions, or neither physical nor programmatic risk conditions. For FY21, all colleges are programmatically low risk, which is great. However, some colleges still have physical risk conditions, and these risk conditions were relayed in your Perkins Notice of State Award, so you would have had that notification when you received that. And then budget modifications, just as always, grantees are allowed to make modifications up to 10% or $1,000, whichever is higher, of any specific line prior to seeking approval, so no budget modification is needed. However, if a modification is greater than 10% or $1,000, again, whichever is higher, of any specific line item, or requires a major change in scope, the submission of a budget modification is required. The template is the last tab of the uniform budget and includes line items as well as a programmatic explanation of the changes. Please make sure that you go in and align each tab with the budget modification that you complete. I know sometimes it's easy to forget to go in and make the changes to individual tabs, but we do require that prior to approval. And again, those can be sent to the CTE mailbox as well. And then all modifications must be submitted no later than May 30th of 2021 for approval, and that is bearing another pandemic. And then payment requests. So federal funds must be requested using the request for payment form, just as always, provided by the board. Vouchers will be processed upon submission of the grantee's request for payment form. There is no limit to the number of payment requests that can be submitted throughout the fiscal year. And those can be sent to Patrick Walber, and you'll see that his email is attached here. And those are due August 1st of each year. And then monitoring, we did make a few changes to the monitoring process, nothing significant, but you will notice it here as I discuss. Currently, monitoring is fluid due to COVID-19. As we're sorting that out, you'll be getting some information. Monitoring will still utilize a risk-based assessment. That risk-based assessment determines a grantee's risk designation, as I spoke of earlier. And it is assessed based on physical and programmatic factors like unspent funds, timely submission of quarterly reports and budget modifications, experience of relevant leadership, significant technical assistance needs, and unallowable expenditures. Grantees, this is different from last year, but goes back to previous years. Grantees will not receive a joint programmatic or physical report. They will be separate, just as they were in years past. And then the procedures of monitoring. So there is going to be two different areas of monitoring. The monitoring that we've always done, where we come to the college and we go over documents and things of that nature, and then the targeted technical assistance. So when we do come to do the visit, that is for grantees whose institutional risk score was in the top 20% of all ICCB grantees, and that is designated as the elevated risk. And like I said, you do undergo that visit from ICCB physical and programmatic staff for the review. And you're required to complete the self-assessment portion of the monitoring tool and submit documentation specific to the documentation checklist, just as the checklist that we've sent in the last year. Grantees will receive a formal monitoring report from both programmatic and physical. And again, those will be separate. And then the other will be targeted technical assistance. So you will notice that there's no longer going to be a moderate or low risk level for monitoring. It will just be targeted technical assistance. And those are for grantees institutional risk score was not in the top 20% of those grantees. And you will not receive a formal monitoring report. It will just be a phone call, desk review, conference that relates to all awarded grants by the ICCB. So what grants will be monitored? The risk-based monitoring system applies to all grants you receive through the ICCB. So that includes the Title I leadership grants, your Perkins basic grant, and any other that relates to CTE. If the Perkins administrator is not the contact for a specific leadership grant, then that applicable person will be contacted and in the loop on this. And then all Title I leadership grants will be monitored in accordance with their respective scope, assessment, and deliverable outcomes. So you may see some budgetary and reporting items being requested, applicable performance outcomes, required grant deliverable outcomes, or supplemental documentation specific to the grant and/or grantee. And with that, I'll turn it over to Whitney if there are any questions.
Finishing up typing a response here quickly. Any questions for Nicole? Throwing a couple scenarios in there about the 2-year development time, so hopefully that's been helpful. All right, so I'm going to talk about, let me share my video. I'm going to talk about the performance metrics. So, you know, as you guys have goals and objectives, our state plan, we also have 6 goals. And I know you all know about those. We talked about them a million times over the last 2 years. And they are here and included on the screen. But this is really what sets the direction for funding and for the initiatives that we are carrying out over the next 4 years, right? So our strategic direction is driven by these 6 goals, which include increasing the percentage of students who obtain a post-secondary certificate, degree, or industry-recognized credential, strengthening offerings by improving access, program quality, transition points between education and workforce, increasing CTE dual credit, increasing responsiveness to the workforce, recruiting and retaining a robust and sustainable pipeline of CTE educators, and expanding access to quality work-based learning. And these goals are for our whole CTE system, so secondary and post-secondary. And we stated in the state plan that we would have equity metrics for each of these. So if you can go to the next slide. So this is just a draft, and we're sharing this just for informational purposes to keep you abreast on sort of our planning. So for the first goal, which is credential attainment, right? Increasing the percentage of students who obtain a post-secondary certificate, degree, or industry recognized credential. We actually already have a performance measure for that, right? So if you think about the performance measures you have for post-secondary, there are 3. 2P1 is earned recognized post-secondary credentials. So we're already measuring that. We already have targets for the next 4 years decided. So that's an easy one. And we have the same for, I know ISB has the same for dual credit, right? So we have some performance metrics that align to our goals. So this is the one I'm sharing today, just to give you an idea of some of our planning. Within each goal, where appropriate, we are disaggregating it, and we will have equity targets. So specific to this particular goal, we will have equity targets for racial and ethnic minorities, as well as all special populations as defined by Perkins, if we have enough data on each special population. So just look forward to this. We will probably have this information out this winter, and it will mostly just be informational for you, but then you'll be able to understand sort of how the funding and the initiatives, right, that we're trying to drive locally really build up to an aggregate of us helping us as a state meet our statewide goals. And so within each particular goal, we will have an aggregate targets for each year. We'll have disaggregated equity targets, and then we will have a number of strategies and strategy metrics. And so you can see here on the right side of the screen, here are activities that we're doing, right, that we hope to impact this particular goal, right? developing programs of study, expanding dual credit, expanding integrated education and training, supporting accelerated learning models, making sure that our programs are seamless, that there are a number of retention efforts, right? And so those are some of the things that we're working on, and we'll have a number of metrics for those as well. And so we'll do this for each of the performance, or yeah, each of the goals. And you will see that in your final report that is due for each year, we may have some additional questions to help us answer these particular questions and to collect this information. So what's on the next slide? I can't remember. Can you move forward? Oh, okay, go back. Go back to 2 slides ago with the goals. So some of these are going to be, they're going to be easy to collect, right? One is the one I just talked about. We can collect that through our performance reporting. 3, we collect that information through the dual credit report every year. So that's going to be easy to collect that information. The others are going to be a little more difficult. So let's say number 4, for example, increase responsiveness to local, regional, and state workforce needs. Trying to identify a quantifiable metric for that and a way to collect that information is going to be rather difficult. So we are actually leaning towards a qualitative metric, so where we would put out a survey. Maybe we will ask you to release the survey to your program advisory committees and the employers on those groups. And we have some sort of evaluation about their responsiveness, and we look at that over the next 4 years. So those are some of the things that we're doing, and hopefully that helps inform some of your work and will inform our direction after these 4 years in terms of goal setting and equity metrics. The reason that we waited to sort of set some of these goals is because right now the Board of Higher Education and the B20 Council, as well as the Community College Board, are working to set equity targets for certain groups, but also for certain particular goals. And so we want to make sure we're aligned to that. And so we're sort of in a holding pattern for now, but we will keep you abreast as we move forward and identify some of these metrics and identify the ways in which we will collect this information. Any questions on this? We just wanted to share with you all what we've been up to. So Scott asked about, like, for goal 1, you were looking for an increase in %. In 3, are you looking for an overall increase? 3, I think we actually broke it down into sub-goals. I think we looked for an increase in the number of programs or number of courses that are off CTE courses offered for dual credit, but also an increase in number of students too. So a number instead of a percentage.
Do you have any concern about this shrinking population and so getting to that increased enrollment?
For dual credit or for goal 1?
For
goal 1's a
goal 3,
percentage,
actually.
so.
Goal 3.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think we're seeing a growth in dual credit and you know, we also are looking for, from an equity perspective, increasing the number of high schools that have not offered CTE coursework, dual credit coursework in the past. And so there's a number of things. I think the decreasing population does present a challenge a little bit, but and that's probably a data point that we will look at, but I think there is significant room for growth where it won't necessarily impact us as much. All right, so we can move to state leadership activities. So many of you know that the state plan sort of is our plan for the activities that we're going to carry out over the next 4 years. And so I just wanted to share just quickly some of the projects that we're working on this year. And our contractors, our professional development and research contractors. And so you can see here in terms of research, we're utilizing our funding to fund the following research studies. So the first is on former foster youth post-secondary pathways. We're looking at the rate of adoption of CTE open educational resources and the role of the school librarian. We are going to be embarking on a racial campus climate study, as well as ICSPS is going to be doing some research to inform their professional development on the transitions from secondary to post-secondary and post-secondary to the workforce for individuals with disabilities, but particularly those with autism spectrum disorder. If you go to the next slide. Here is the list of technical assistance and professional development that we will be doing this year. So, of course, we have Pathways to Results that's being rebranded. We have Program Review Illinois. So some of you serve on the Program Review Advisory Committee. We're doing a number of things and improvements there. They're going to be doing a student focus group. We're going to be improving the CLNA for the next round. So you may be getting contacted from OCCRL on an evaluation of that. And, you know, I'm trying to find one maybe to pull out here because I don't want to read all of these, but you can see that, you know, our large partners are OCCRL and ICSPS, and Amy and Brittany, feel free to chime in if there's a particular element here you want to chime in on. But I do want to maybe point out, if you look down toward the end, the professional development modules for business and industry representatives entering teaching. So that's something that you guys have identified as a barrier over the last several years in terms of those who come to the college right from the field. Maybe they're still in the field, and just they're you know, they weren't trained, they weren't classically trained as a teacher. And so we created, and by we, I mean not me, ICSPS created some modules on pedagogy and equity guided pedagogy. And so there are some great modules as it relates to student-centeredness and just some of those practical applications too, like creating a syllabus and creating a rubric and assessment. And so those are going to be really helpful and straightforward ways to improve instruction. And so Amy, when is that presentation? We're talking about it at the forum, and I want to make sure we put a plug in for that.
Yeah, I just looked that up, and it is tomorrow, so Thursday at 1:15. We will be presenting on those modules and kind of giving an overview of what those are and how we're going to be piloting them.
Great, thank you, Brittany. Yeah, so you can see we have a lot going on, and we're very excited to bring you these opportunities. If there's any particular topic that's missing, please let us know, and we'll make sure to include that in our initiative focus for next year.
All right, thank you so much, Whitney. Are there any lingering questions or anything that we have? We have a couple minutes before the end of this session, and then we have a 15-minute break before we break into our liaison groups. So we do ask that if you want to be a part of the liaison groups, please just stay on the line. You can go refill your water, go to the restroom, whatever you got to do. And then we'll come back together at 3:30. I know there were several individuals who did not register, and we're unable to ascertain what college you are from. So if someone's reached out to you to ask what college you're from, please respond to them so we can get you put into the correct liaison group. But with that, are there any outstanding questions or comments or any thoughts you want to share? I thought today went fairly well, considering, you know, this is the first time doing this in a virtual environment.
Sorry, my dog just started.
Thanks,
I
Angela.
unmuted myself. That was me for two different things. One, the phone numbers on here, just to note, we're not working in our offices, so emails are probably the better way to get a hold of us if you need an immediate answer. And I'm gonna put in a shameless plug for my 3:30 session. So if That's about ICAPs and IETs. So if you've got questions, sorry, my daughter just walked in the door, of course. So if you've got questions or you want information about IETs, then you'll have to get off of this one and go find that IET session at 3:30 as well.
Thank you, Angela. And yes, that's very good of you to note that none of us are working in our offices. So I think we're intermittently checking our voicemail via our cell phones. But yes, email is definitely the best way to reach us at this point in time. Any other comments or questions before we break? Okay, if you can think of anything, or you don't want to share it with the big group, you'd rather just share it with your liaison group. Again, we are meeting at 3:30 on this same platform, so don't exit out of your screen. You don't need to click on another link or anything like that. Just stay on the line, take a short break, and then we'll come back together at 3:30. Thanks, everyone.
Natasha,
Yes,
so for the breakout rooms at 3:30, I'm going to go ahead and open the breakout rooms. It should prompt you to join it. And at 3:30, you can just click that join link and then they can enter them, unless you're going to have an introduction at 3:30.
Nope, that sounds perfect, Kirsten. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open those, and then you can either join it now and then just come back at 3:30, or you can join them at 3:30.
Great. Thank you so much. Brittany, did we want to mute everyone while we try to sort those individuals into their breakouts?
Yeah, we can do that. They should all be muted now.
Yeah, they all should be muted, but they can still hear us. So.
Okay.
Tasha, you should do like a screenshot of you with your hair done in that background. It looks like a nice Zoom icon.
I don't know how to do that.
No either.
How do I do that?
You have an Apple or a desk or a Microsoft like computer?
Oh, are you kidding me? It's a Lenovo.
It's like a 1995 Lenovo.
So you would need to use the snipping tool probably if you're working on something that has Office. Brittany, I'm going to go ahead and make you the host because I have to open that session for Angela.
Okay.
I'm going to go make you a host, and you should see.
Oh, yep. Everyone that's unassigned.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, you're okay.
Yeah, so now you should be able to see the breakout rooms, and you'll see everyone who's unassigned.
All right. And then I'll just do assign to and put them in wherever they go.
Yes.
Okay. So Tasha and Whitney, I need your help here for this. Corinne Johnston.
Brittany, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. She's Marine Valley.
Nope. I need Janelle and or Nicole.
Oh. Janelle. No. Yes. No.
Yes, Janelle.
Okay, I'm gonna get off. Bye.
Okay. Bye, Kirsten. Thank you. Deja, where do we want to put her?
She's signing off, I think, but you can put her in.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, you can put her in a group. Deja, you're welcome to join a group, but I know that you're signing off, so. Up to you.
What group would it be?
Whatever one you want.
Okay, it doesn't matter. You can put me in any group.
Okay, we'll do some Russian roulette here. Okay, Julie Sabella. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Oh, I know this. I want to say maybe Elgin, which would be Anne, but I'm not positive.
Well, I'll put her in there. So here's what'll happen. I'll put her in there, and then I will stay in this main room because as the host, if they're having issues or anything, they can reach out to me to let me know. So if they've been put into the wrong room, they can say, yeah, I'm not supposed to be here, and I can move them.
Okay.
Okay, so put her in Anne's.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, Melissa Luttenbacher.
I'm not sure.
Okay, Bonnie Campbell.
Illinois Valley. Janelle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Pamela Harmon.
I'm not sure.
Pat, and I believe this is Pat Medford.
That would be Nicole.
Veronica Enselman.
I'm not sure about that one either.
Okay. Vincent Wiggins.
I believe, I just had communication with him.
If you can
Oh,
hear
he's
us say
City
your name,
Colleges.
I was gonna say, if you can hear us say your name, that means we're trying to figure out which college you're from, so we can assign you. If you can put that in the chat, that would be really helpful.
I know he's City Colleges. I think he might be the VP of something.
Which name did you say? I'm sorry.
Vincent Wiggins.
That's me. I
Oh.
signed out and signed back in. I'm with Truman College, part of the City Colleges.
Okay, so
Okay, Truman, that is Anne.
Anne.
Right. Yeah.
All right, Vincent, I'm going to assign you to your group.
Thank you.
Okay, and then is Veronica Enselman still on the call?
Okay, she just said Heartland with Nicole.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you, Veronica.
Okay, and then just you and Whitney, wherever you want to go.
Thanks, you guys.
I'll probably sign off, honestly.
Okay.
Which one are you going to be in, Brittany?
I was just going to stay in the main room just in case
okay.
anybody had issues, and I could pop back and forth if needed.
That's fine. Can I pop myself back and forth between them? Or once I'm in, I'm in?
I think you can ask to
you
rejoin.
Yeah.
Like, I think if you join, like if she assigns you a breakout and you go there, I think you can ask to rejoin the main room, but you won't be able to hop between them without coming back to the main room, right, Brittany?
Oh, okay.
I think so. Full disclosure, this is the first time I've done breakouts on Zoom, so learning curve.
I see a few folks at the top here, like Jonita, Jennifer, Renee.
Yep, so that just means that they haven't hit that join yet. So they've
okay, so
probably
maybe they
stepped
walked
away
away.
to,
Okay.
yeah. Yep,
Oh, sorry,
but
I
yeah,
didn't see
everyone
that.
except for you and Tasha are assigned a breakout room.
Okay.
I'll probably just stay in this main room with you, Brittany, and then I'll have Anne, Janelle, and Nicole let me know if they need me somewhere at some time.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, I'm gonna jump off. I'm gonna try to finish writing this grant. So,
all right, thanks, Whitney.
Great job, everybody.
Thumbs up. I'm gonna take another picture of myself.
Okay. Do you want me to stop recording this?
Oh, yeah.